What is going on, Dominators? Rico Garcia here, and we got yet another exciting episode. Today, we are joined by Larry and Eric from Supertech University, dropping some absolute gems and also giving us a little glimpse into some really cool projects that they have going on and how this all could go ahead and help you and your organization up your game, especially if you're a company that is sub $10 million in total revenue. This is going to be one of those episodes that you are not going to want to miss. So without further ado, let's jump into the episode. Here we go.
Welcome to the Restoration Domination podcast, where you learn actionable advice that moves the needle and helps service-based businesses dominate. Here's your host, Rico Garcia Jr.
All right. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Are you ready to help us dominate?
We are ready to dominate.
Awesome.
Totally. We're going to rock and roll,
Awesome.
man.
I love it. Hey, for those that may not be familiar with the name, Supertech University, do me a favor and fill in some of the gaps on my intro and just let everybody know who you are and what you're doing for the industry.
Yeah. So Larry and I are restoration contractors by trade, sold our business about 5 years ago. And, you know, how we built our business was we recognized that everybody's got the same DHUs, everybody's got the same uniforms, everybody's got the same vans. So the way that we could separate ourselves is to train our team, our technicians, our office staff on having amazing soft skills, being good at sales, learning how to wow clients, learning how to behave on the job site. And that really propelled our business. So now we started Supertech University 3 years ago, and we have daily videos, video lessons, 3 to 5 minutes on soft skills every single day for field technicians, CSRs, business development reps, estimators, and service managers. And that's what we do. We have hundreds and hundreds of companies in all verticals, not just restoration, plumbing, HVAC, electrical, using our product.
Yeah. And by the way, for all the dominators out there, this is actually the second time that we have Eric on the show. Larry couldn't make it on the original recording, but make sure if you want to learn a little bit more, where we really get into the weeds, some really great stuff about how Supertech University is helping. And we'll cover a lot of this material here again today because it is all relevant. Check out episode 45. Again, that's episode 45. I may even leave a link in the video description and in the show notes just to make it easy for you guys to go ahead and find that episode. Larry, you want to add anything to that?
No, it's just that, you can have a great team. I mean, everybody can have a great team. It's just a matter of effort and putting an investment into your team the right way. We didn't know how to do it. It took us a long way to figure it out. And now we're presenting it to everybody else. So we have a system to make it easy for everybody to have a great team and a great culture, so they're not slowing you down in your growth of your business at all.
I love it. So what do you guys have? I know that you guys have some pretty new ventures going on right now that are a little bit more, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's a little bit more geared towards the restoration contractor, and particularly one, in my opinion, extremely important segment of the restoration contractor, which is the newer contractor or maybe the veteran contractor, restoration contractor that hasn't quite hit a threshold. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, when we started Supertech University, we were really geared to field technicians because we didn't feel there was enough training in non-technical ways for them. And now, 3 years later, we started looking around saying, okay, well, what's the next group that we can help, and we really only had to look as far as our own story to realize that, because Larry and I were restoration contractors who were stuck, and we thought we were going to start our business and have all this free time and go fishing and do all this cool stuff. And the reality was we were slaves to our business. We just worked around the clock. We're taking, we're trying to watch a soccer game and we're getting 5 calls from technicians in the field, and all of a sudden that becomes a real grind. So how we basically, I'm going to use the term got off the truck so that we didn't have to be there every single day, was we joined Howard Partridge's inner circle. And because there just wasn't anybody for that smaller restoration contractor that we were at the time. And we joined the inner circle because Howard Partridge came from a carpet cleaning background. He also used to do restoration at one point, and we started putting all his systems in play so that we could grow to the point where we didn't have to field calls during the kids soccer game and miss family outings and all the stuff. So, fast forward 15 years later, we've been members of the inner circle that whole time. And, I went to Howard and Larry went to Howard, and we were just like, we want to start a group with some industry friends within the inner circle, because he has 35 years worth of materials to help people get, to a scalable turnkey business. So we're partnering with Peter Lyons, who I believe's been on this podcast from Restoration Golf League.
Indeed.
Pete's a longtime friend. Peter was our vendor when we had our restoration company. He did our environmental testing. And Katie Harris and Derek.
He was our abatement testing guy.
And then Katie Harris and Derek Priest from Spot On Solutions, and they were our marketing team. So we're putting, we have Derek and Katie teaching digital marketing. Larry's teaching referral marketing. I'm doing restoration. Pete's doing a bit of all of that. And we're creating a group that is really geared, Rico, to get that restoration contractor that might be, I don't know, 0 to 3 million. Usually you see around 3 million, they're starting to get off the truck, but a lot of guys stall out at 1 million because there's only, $1 million, $1.5 million, because there's only so much of them to go around, and they get stuck and they don't know how to move forward. So we're starting this group within the inner circle to help guys, because we stalled there. We stalled at that $1 million mark, and we needed help to get past it so that we could actually live our dreams.
Right. Yeah. And I
add
love it.
to
And
that?
that's why.
Yeah, and we're just going to hit on all the parts that we got stuck at. We're like, you know what? These are the things. These were our big problems at that point, and we're going to hit on these for people. And we talked to a lot of our clients. What can be helpful? What can we do for you? And they said, we need some help with referral marketing, digital marketing, getting referrals, and getting a lot of reviews as well, which is Katie and Derek going to help with. And Pete is like the king marketer. I mean, he won us over the years working with us with Shamrock when we were in Ranch Cucamonga, and he's awesome at it. So we're going to present some really cool stuff.
Got it. So, and this is why we kind of decided to name the podcast the way that we did, right? Road to Freedom, and really getting to that $3 million mark, because that's where we start to believe that, okay, this is where you actually start getting a little bit of wiggle room. Break it down, because you guys have a lot of experience. You speak to a lot of companies, and in a lot of ways, this is a very open industry, right? And you can just kind of pick up the phone, call somebody and be like, hey, I need some help with this. Give me, what's been your experience? But also in a lot of instances, this podcasts like the ones that you guys have, right? That's kind of the only connection that a lot of business owners have to the outside world, to other entrepreneurs within our space. That's literally just opening everything up, right? So sometimes they don't know if they're on the right track or not. So I want to break down this $1 million to $3 million mark, because you guys have spoken to a lot of organizations and you probably have a little bit of an inside track. And obviously I have my own ideas, because I speak to a lot of, business owners as well. And we do a lot of off-camera conversations, but just to kind of get the conversation going here, let's talk profitability, right? And let's talk about why the $1 million number is significant, and why the $3 million number is significant, because ultimately, and Eric, I think that when you were on the previous show, episode 45, we mentioned something along the lines of, it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you keep. All right. So everybody strives for these huge numbers, but really it's like, what are they taking home? Right? Because if a company's doing, that first $1 million in revenue, a lot of owners still don't have much of a life, right? They're still not progressing a whole lot. Let's call it what it is. I mean, in a lot of cases, which I've honestly seen, it's almost like, a little bit better paid. I mean, they've got a manager's pay at McDonald's. And yet they're bringing in $1 million in revenue, right? So let's unpack that. Number one, what would be a good what should the gross revenue look like? What should the net, what should, gross profits look like? What should net profits look like? Do we have some benchmark numbers that someone who's listening that maybe hasn't hit that 1,200,000 or 3 that they should strive for, so they can kind of start setting the sail as to whether or not they're getting in the right direction?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, man, because Larry and I work in all these different verticals, we're hearing this from, everybody, right? Like it's all the same. And I think a good benchmark for most people would be have a 20% net profit after you've at least paid yourself a reasonable salary included in your expenses there. How many people really do that? I don't know. And, and the thing is that can you make a 20% net profit and not have to do the lion's share of all the managing, running out and doing all the estimates? It's like, okay, great. You did 1,000,000, but did you work 80 hours a week to get that 20% net profit? And then if we put a manager, like let's say a mitigation manager in there at, 75 to 90,000 a year, probably depending on where you live, what kind of money are you personally taking home then? Right? So like, do you have enough revenue and enough profit to actually bring somebody in to take some of the load off yourself? And look, Larry and I have been stuck there. I mean, there's 2 of us. That even makes it worse, right? There's 2 owners. So now we got to make double the money to actually have a life. And I think that $1,000,000 mark, Rico, is important because you're not chucking a truck anymore, right? If you're doing 1,000,000, you probably have a few guys, you probably have a few vans, people around town are knowing who you are, starting to get a reputation, but now you've got to move well past that or you're in no man's land, right? So like all of a sudden, if you're at 1.5 or 1.8 and you're really now busting at the seams, right? Because I really need a MIT manager. I really need an office manager, but can I afford them at that price, right? So that's why I always feel like the next breaking point is 3. Because if I can get to 3, then I probably can afford that really good office person and somebody to take some of the slack away from me. Because, go ahead, Larry. I'm sorry.
Well, the scaling works. There's enough money coming in and managing it properly. That's what helped us. I mean, you managing it properly, that's where the coaching helped us an awful lot. I mean, you have the money coming in, but you don't want it going out behind you. But with that much money coming in, you can have a team around you to manage what's happening. Once they're well trained, they understand their roles. You got your org chart and everybody's staying in their boxes. And you have coaching coming in that gives you that 5,000-foot view on what to do and what not to do. With that much money coming in, you could manage it and put 20% in your pocket. That's the idea.
Rico, the other thing is, how many of us start a business thinking we're going to get more freedom? That's why we call this business, this group that we're starting with Howard, the Restoration Freedom Group, because I just did a post on this on social media the other day. I mean, if you really ask me, why did I start a business? It was because I wanted to have free time to ski more. Like literally that was the reason. Like I'd rather ski more and take the risk of ownership than work for somebody else, right? Well, the reality is for the first probably 5 or 7 years that Larry and I are in business, I probably skied twice because I was working 7 days a week, right? There's no freedom in that. And that's when we joined Inner Circle. And
he kept buying a ski pass. He'd buy the ski pass. I'm like, you got to go skiing, man. He says, I don't have time to go skiing. I said, no, you need to go skiing.
Yeah.
You got to get out there. You got to make it happen. And that's what happened.
Yeah. So, the thing is that you have to remember why you started your business in the first place. Nobody started the business to work 80-hour weeks and have all the stress and all that. Like, that's not why they start. They start because they have this idea that I want to be able to leave at 2 p.m. on Thursday and go see my kid's piano recital or whatever. And, I think for a lot of us, all of a sudden that never happens. Not only that, but you're like an absentee parent because you just work in that business constantly, right? And I think probably a lot of people that are listening can relate to that. And Larry and I had a few moments where we were just like, should we shut this thing down? This is just like too much work for too little money when we were at those beginning stages. And that's when we went and sought help because we needed somebody that had already been there, Howard Partridge. Okay, it might not have been exactly our industry, but it was close. And he provided us with a blueprint, right? And all of a sudden we start working his blueprint, and now we're growing. And now we're able to figure out how to get an office person, have systems to bring people in, to create good referral and digital marketing so that we can get the phone ringing. And really what we're doing, Rico, with Restoration Freedom Group within the Inner Circle is just taking all of Howard's stuff that helped Larry and I, and then drilling it down directly to restoration contractors, because everybody that's teaching in this group is in the restoration trade, right? And that's why we're doing it. And look, I'll be the first one to say, once you hit that 3 million mark, you're probably going to go to Violand. You're probably going to go elsewhere to get different types of training. Let us get you there, right? There's very little training in our industry to get the person up to that level. A lot of the training's built for bigger.
And then with this group,
go ahead, Larry.
We met so many different people in the industry that we're able to communicate with and say, hey, man, this is what I'm doing. Is this working? What do you have going on? We got this big loss. We're not sure what we should do. We'd call our colleagues up and connect with them. And it made a big difference having a support group around us where we always felt like we had somebody that's done it, certain situations. We'd have a person that was working for us marketing and we weren't managing them well. I called one of my buddies. I'm like, hey, man, I'm not sure what to do here. And he had some documents and he had some insight on what to do. And that helped it make it so much more smooth that the network of people that we met was super valuable. And that's what we have right now that's going to this event. So that's a big deal of having colleagues that have been there and done that you can rely on.
Yeah, I totally agree. So break down some of the strategy, right? A lot of the consultants that are out there, a lot of the people that are teaching, right? Like you said, I mean, they're not really built for the smaller guy, right? And there's a lot of, real valuable information, but you also sometimes, don't have the financial wherewithal in order to play at that table, right? Because if not, then you're not growing, right? You're just not there yet. And it's sad to know in a lot of ways that it's like, all right, great. Well, I know that I need help, but I also know that I don't have enough money to acquire said help, and to have something for that, early stage entrepreneur who's trying to figure out this industry, that's extremely valuable. So without getting into direct consulting, but also without, kind of letting people know like what they can expect and maybe even some actionable things that they could start doing today. What are some of the main points that you guys are going to be covering that you feel could potentially be the catalyst to massive profitability?
Yeah. Well, I can tell it's easy. And I kind of touched on it earlier. I mean, the first thing that we're going to do is Derek and Katie are going to be talking about digital marketing in a way to get the phone to ring where, we're not knocking on doors, that it can ring, all the time. Second step is we are going to knock on doors. We're going to do referral marketing with people who can give us work, multiple jobs every month. And Larry and Peter will head that up. And then the third step will be me talking about building systems. And, look, I built all the systems out for our restoration company, because without systems, you have no accountability and control of your restoration company. And far too many restoration companies are just winging it on a daily basis. And they don't have accountability for their people, and they don't have systems for those people to follow. So those three things, and then
Eric was so into his systems. Sorry to interrupt. When we sold the business and we were cleaning it up, he had so many systems that he didn't even implement that he wanted to put into play. And I had all these systems, and I called him like, what am I supposed to do with all these systems? He goes, yeah, I want to implement more and more of those systems. So he's a systems master, and I'm quite the opposite. That's why I was quite impressed. I was like, wow, these are pretty good.
Well, anybody
but we didn't know
anybody
what to do
who's
with them.
put systems in play understands that you can build systems like in your mind or in your head, but you can do that way faster than you can implement the ones that you've already created, right? So it's going to take you time. So, what we're going to be doing in this group is I'm going to be training people like, this is the first system you put in place. We're not moving past this one until everybody in your organization can do this. Okay, has everybody got that? Great. Now we're going to put the next system in place, right? And it sounds tedious, but that's what it takes. And if you look at somebody who's, a big, let's say, franchise, that's what they were doing when it was, early on. They were there, I mean, anybody that's ever watched The Founder about McDonald's with Michael Keaton, he's standing out in a driveway with a piece of chalk laying out what a McDonald's layout's going to be. That's what it takes, right? And people don't seem to understand that. That's what it takes to get to that level where now I can plug a manager in there because there's systems, and I can train that manager pretty quickly as long as they hopefully either smart or have some experience. And then I can move on to the next position and plug somebody into that system. So we're going to spend a lot of time on that. And Rico, how it works in the inner circle is, if they joined moving forward after the boot camp, if they joined the inner circle, they're going to be assigned a coach, which would be one of us. And we're going to meet with them once a month, one-on-one for an hour. And we're going to be talking through their problems and helping them implement. And then there's going to be, a weekly, they call it in the inner circle, a pod, but it's a mastermind. And that's your community. That's the people that are in your industry, in your group. And that's where they're posing questions like, oh, I've got this problem. My adjuster won't pay, blah, 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 blah. And then now all of a sudden you've got 20 people on this Zoom call going, hold on, I just had that problem 3 weeks ago, right? So there's power in numbers. There's power in community. And that's how we benefited from the inner circle. Larry mentioned it earlier, we got around people who could help us. So instead of having it broad, like all home services, now we're trying to create a group where it's just restoration contractor.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so I know that you can't really, because you said step number one, realistically, is going to be like the digital marketing, making sure that your phone is ringing, obviously referral marketing where you're, shaking hands, kissing babies. And then of course, just having the overall systems in place, right? So these are three top areas that I think most entrepreneurs know is important. The question now that I have is, of those three, which one should a brand new entrepreneur really focus on? Meaning if you're sub $1 million, right? Because again, your audience at this point, like your avatar, your ideal individual, this is the business owner that's between 1 to 3 million. Well, okay. There's a lot of in that group that may not necessarily be at $1 million yet. And they are really, really busy just on jobs, right? Because it's kind of one guy in a truck, maybe a teammate, maybe that first 1 or 2 employees, and they don't have a lot of time to sit down, get the ideas out of their head, put it on a Google document, start creating an SOP, right? They don't have a lot of time to go out there and meet with, facilities managers and real estate agents and, whoever, or public adjusters, whoever's going to go ahead and feed them business. And they also don't have the time or the inclination sometimes to learn digital marketing. So they're kind of in this spot where they're like, what the hell do I do first? Where should I be dedicating my energy? But before you answer that, let's just go ahead and take a quick moment and thank our sponsors. Are you tired of managing salespeople? And let's be honest. I mean, sometimes you even really feel like you know what you're doing when it comes down to managing a sales team. And this is where Wylander comes in. With over 40 years of sales management experience, they can do it for you. And the best part is they can do it for a fraction of the cost of hiring a full-time sales manager. So listen, do yourself a favor. Call Wylander today and see what a difference a real sales manager can do for your company. Dominators, let's face it, your company will make it or break it on the backs of your estimating team. But if we're honest here for a second, what tools have you actually given them to succeed? The Actionable Profile is the newest tool inside of your estimator's toolbox, or at the very least, it should be. The Actionable Xactimate Profile is a data-driven solution that provides real-time estimating guidance on the fly. It checks for both overages, omissions in your estimates in real time, leading your team to having much more accurate scopes each and every single time that they're writing an estimate. Avoid any kind of potential conflicts with the adjuster and ensure that your estimates include every single warranted line item with the Actionable Xactimate Profile. Get your free demo today. If you head on over to value.getinsights.org/dominate, we've got an amazing offer for you. Again, head on over to value.getinsights.org/dominate and get your free demo today. Hey, Dominators, one claim can improve your profitability and accelerate your cash flow while focusing more on what matters most, which is running your business. They know that managing insurance billing and collections on disaster mitigation jobs can be painful. And listen, dealing with adjusters that are always pushing back on your claims documents, carriers that delay their payments for months on end, and your team spends a ton of time and effort only to get suboptimal outcomes most of the time. But over at One Claim, they know how to work with adjusters and how to justify and settle your claims. Their team of attorneys are well-trained claims advocates, and they have experience in regulations, policies, and all the laws that pertain to disaster mitigation, as well as homeowners insurance. They know all the ins and outs and leverage that expertise to increase your overall collections on disaster mitigation work. They work also with proprietary software systems that enable their claims advocates to push your invoices through the carrier's billing process quickly. They pride themselves on insurance leading processing times. Go ahead and contact them today for a free consultation. If you head on over to oneclaimsolution.com/dominate, you can go ahead and pop in your information and get your free consultation today. Again, that is oneclaimsolution.com/dominate. Hey, Dominators, did you know that about 80% of businesses are actually unsellable? This is why you need to let Restoration Brokers of America work with you to ensure that you maximize the value of your business when you decide that it's time for a change. All you have to do is visit sellmyrestorationbusiness.com for more information. You've worked hard to build it. Now let RBA work hard to sell it. All right, Dominators, we are back. So as we left off before, we're trying to find out of these three, right? Digital marketing, referral marketing, and having SOPs, having systems in your business, which one should the newer entrepreneur or the person who's sub $3 million in top line revenue, which is really what we're talking about, which one of those should be done first? I have my opinion, but I'll voice mine after Eric and Larry.
Well, I have mine too.
Yeah, and mine's going to be a little bit different too.
Mine's going to be systems because I mean, that's assuming you're getting enough work that you're actually viable, right? Like you have some phone ringing. I mean, granted, you got to get the phone ringing to have a business, but you can't begin to build a business with no systems in place. And Larry and I are living proof of that. We started our business with no systems. And then as we added people, it was mega chaos, tons of problems, revolving door of employees. And it wasn't until I then had to go backwards. And Rico, like the busy thing, I mean, Larry can attest to this. I would go out and work a 10-hour day, go home, eat, and then an hour later be sitting back at my desk for 2 hours every night building a system. Like, this isn't for the faint of heart. Like, this is the stuff you have to do. And did I like doing that? No. But I recognize that if I could put systems in place as we start bringing in the new employees, the ones who, quit before, and now there's structure, now I have something to work with. Now, granted, that's all saying that you have to have some level of the phone ringing and some amount of work, right? So I'd love to hear what yours is, you and Larry.
Go ahead, Larry.
No, I think it's the referral marketing. I mean, go knocking on a couple doors of people that can send you business. I mean, the idea is to get one person, one plumber, one property agent, property manager to be sending you work continuously. I mean, they become your own personal marketer because they're referring you jobs on a regular basis. And that's what worked best for us.
Let's talk about
I'd
like to unpack that just a little bit about the referral marketing and how to go ahead, because there's a crackhead mentality that I feel goes along with that. Because again, and there's specific people that are in our industry that have entire systems built out around how to go out and ask for referrals from certain type of professions, right? And the short and sweet of it is like, hey, you're presenting yourself as this business owner that can go ahead and do all of these great things for all of their customers because you don't have any. So it's like, really, in my opinion, you're just kind of like the crackhead in the industry. It's like, hey, please feed me a little bit because I can't feed myself, right? So like, how do you... And I'm sure, and mind you, this is locker room talk that I'm putting out into the open here, but these are conversations that real people have, like entrepreneurs have. They know that they should be doing some kind of, referral marketing per se, especially in the beginning. But at the same time, they also feel like, oh, well, dude, like I really feel like a schlep. Like, I know that I don't have anything right now and I'm kind of begging for business. That's what it kind of feels like mentally. How do you get over that?
What you have to do is you have to offer them something that's going to benefit them. You can't just go in there begging. Like, listen, I'm going to take care of you and your clients. I'm going to make you look good to your clients. So we've had many, agents, insurance agents, plumbers, property managers thanking us profusely for going into a home and helping home or a business and helping those clients with the water damage, because water damage is a dramatic episode that happens. And if you can make someone feel calm, cool, and comfortable and thank the people that called you in,
Yeah.
that makes you look good and it makes them look good for sending a good company in there. And you have to present that. And that's the value that you bring. And then there's other things you can say, what else can I do for you? Can I connect you with somebody? Maybe some of these insurance agents are marketing to property managers or they want plumbers. You just start connecting people and you do different things for them, and you're not the crackhead at the end of the day. Because who wants to be the crackhead? We used to go and see, I don't know, want to put a stigma on it, all these girls with the super duper mini skirts
It
coming
is.
in, and I couldn't compete with that. And I would say, "Hey, man, you can talk to her, and because she's way more attractive than me," but they wouldn't be able to deliver what we were delivering. We were delivering a quality service because we had the systems there. It was making. We had a great team to back up these things. We'd communicate with the client all the time, and we would back what I would say when I'm doing my crackhead marketing, that they would be extremely happy with
So, and the
us.
thing is too, when you're smaller, a lot of times, especially when the owner's on a lot of jobs and doing a lot of the work, you can often deliver better than a bigger company because you don't have as much
100%.
going on, right? So that's what we sold. That's what Larry would sell on. Like Larry could go in and be like, in the early days, like he knew I was going to be on the site pretty much the whole time when we were brand new. So
Hmm.
we just Larry, his whole pitch, the whole time, but especially early on was like, yeah, look, there's bigger companies, but nobody's going to outservice us. Like we're going to serve your
Right.
client. And
100%.
we never felt the crackhead vibe. Like we believed ourselves to be way past that from day one. Like we
Right.
just didn't
And again, mind
identify
you,
with
I'm not
that.
saying that you guys feel that way or that anybody that does it. I'm saying that literally there are conversations that I know people are like, oh man, I feel like I'm begging for business. I feel like, I'm calling these mold assessors just like every other guy and be like, hey, by the way, do you mind if I like get on your vendor list and, I'll really take care of your clients. And it's like that same thing. And then they're just sitting there like, trying to build these relationships. And what I say to that, which kind of goes back to my philosophy and approach, like I think that you need to, as a business owner, really look at your situation and then be very, very positive about the things that you currently have the ability to offer today that you will not be able to offer later on. And what I mean by that, if you are in fact an owner operator and you are that one person in the truck, and maybe it's your wife, maybe it's your friend, maybe it's your cousin, maybe it's whoever, you got that one person that's maybe your assistant that's helping you do these projects. Well, then you are giving better service and you're in a position to give much better service than anybody else, right? 5 years from now, you're not going to be in this person's house. You're not going to be in this business owner's business, right? So this is a unique opportunity for these smaller guys to really come into the business and start racking it in, because you've got this unique selling proposition of, look, I am the owner. This is my bread and butter. I will never bite the hand that feeds me. No one is going to outwork me, and no one's going to go ahead and give you better craftsmanship than what I am willing to do. And when you compete with that, and you put that up against let's say a sales manager or a restoration manager, 99% of the time, the business owner who made that pitch is going to win. And that's a unique selling proposition, right? But now you also have, when we're talking about referral marketing, right? Like really reaching out to real estate agents, really reaching out to public adjusters, reaching out to plumbers, all of this stuff. You got to remember that, at least something that should be kept in the back of everybody's mind, is whatever system you start with needs to be scalable. Nobody thinks about that, and very few people actually openly talk about that. So let me just give an example of what I know is currently in existence in the marketplace. They say, hey, pick up the phone, contact X amount of people. in X industry, whether that's a plumber or a public adjuster. Tell them that you can do A, B, and C. Great. Finally, you get one connection that is now sending you business. Well, now all of a sudden you're busy, or you start getting busy, right? Because remember, you're still in that $1 million mark, that $1.5 million mark, right? Well, now you start getting busy. Now you're on all these additional job sites. Maybe you've got 1-2 connections that are sending you leads. Well, guess what's happening now? You don't have the time or the scalability to do what got you there, which now means if someone more charismatic with a little bit more pizzazz in you goes ahead and romances that lead source, they're gone. You're back to square one. Where's the scalability in that? Which is where I believe that there's a lot of situations where you have the ability as a business owner early on to look at what it is that you do. And let's call a spade a spade. If the phone is ringing 24/7, just nonstop, I think, right? Again, you may not have the best reviews on the planet, but you'll definitely have an endless amount of business. Let's look at how many people are doing TPA work, right? Or program work. Their phone is just ringing off the hook. Their customers aren't happy, but guess what? They're making money hand over fist. Why? Because they've got the lead flow. And that's where digital, I think, really, really comes in. Like having business owners have an understanding on how to go ahead and scale that digital message, because regardless of how much can come in, you could always continue to scale that. And at the end of the day, like the systems, we're making some assumptions here that the business owner actually wants to do the right thing and that they're going to try to service people the right way, right? What they may need that additional help with is on how to get better quality referrals. And now they have that income to go ahead and dump into that market. I mean, do you see the difference there in like how the approach is?
I don't disagree with that. I think a lot of owners in that, let's say 500,000 to $1 million, though, they can't handle as much work as a TPA would give them. And then if they have no systems, they're not going to be able to deliver. I mean, they can have the phone ring all day, but if they can't get their people to go do these jobs without them there, they're stuck again. They have a whole different problem, right? It's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. If you can't get the phone ringing, then systems are irrelevant, right? Because you don't have enough work for them to matter. But let's say you say, okay, great, I'm a smaller operator and I got in with a TPA and all of a sudden now they're feeding me 3 jobs a day and I don't have any infrastructure. Now I'm doomed the other way. And look, I understand what Larry's saying is not scalable. That is true. It's not scalable at a certain dollar amount, right? But I think it is more manageable, Rico, for the short term, for that smaller operator it's easier to manage that amount of work than to go get program work and then just get inundated. And it's like, you got to figure that out. Every single situation's a little bit different. So it depends on the makeup of the owner.
Well, and by the way, I just want to clarify this. I just want to clarify this so that you understand when I mentioned program work is just as an example, because people couldn't understand in our industry the relation of that lead flow, right? I was using that as just as an example with regards to digital marketing, because with digital marketing, that is in fact scalable, and you can have your phone ringing if you do it right. Yeah. You can have your phone ringing all day, every day, the days that you want, the hours that you want. Like you can really, really fine tune it to the point to where like, all right, cool, I've got X amount of dollars and I'm going to put my marketing campaign between Monday and Friday. We stop it at 9 p.m. and I know within 1 or 2 calls on average how much I should get. Well, then at that point, like once you get that good, it's almost like good. Well, you get the pick of the litter, right? Like you get the pick of the litter. You only do the projects that you want to do. And I feel as if, well, actually, I shouldn't even say I feel. I know, because we've done it, where it wasn't a 7-day-a-week, venture for me. Because like I would say, I don't want this project. I want that project. And that's the one that I'm going to go ahead and do. Right. And that would give me the ability to kind of have a life by design, which again, kind of goes back right to this systems and kind of getting to know like who you are as an entrepreneur and what kind of goals you really have. And that's kind of where you start designing your business, right? And how it fits into your lifestyle.
But I think you would agree. Look, as an owner operator, that's totally 100% true, right? Like that's totally 100%. True. But all of a sudden, if I have 5 employees, I don't get to quite pick the litter as much anymore because now I got payroll every week, right? So all of a sudden it starts to change. And I think that's where it gets hard for people because all of a sudden
is as they start scaling to a certain number.
Yeah, because now you have the pressure of like, holy crap, I've got these 5 people that I have to make payroll on every Friday. I've got to collect that money. So the point being is like, I actually think all 3 of the things that we're talking about are super important and you need to learn to be good at all of them. It's just,
yeah. And then how do you take a 24-hour day?
Well, and it's small increments, right? Yeah.
Right.
I mean, like we had the luxury. I mean, like for our company, it was a luxury and a curse, right? The curse is there's 2 owners. So we have to make double the money. But the luxury is that Larry could go referral market all the time because he was not in the field really much. You know, after a certain point, we're like, okay, Larry's untouchable. He doesn't go in the field. He just brings in business. So, you know, every situation's just a little bit different, you know. And look, I know a lot of contractors that, you know, they've got the nice clothes in the back of the van. So like they're heading to a loss. They pull off their grubby clothes. They put the good ones on. They bring a pineapple into the plumbing company and say hi, go back out and put the old crummy clothes on and go do some work. Right. And like, I just think that there's a lot of,
I was doing all the time. I was playing Superman.
Yeah. There's a lot of in between.
Yeah, and this is where I think the coaching aspect is so important, right? Because, and this is where I think that getting in a room with mentors and other mentees is where it becomes so valuable because every business owner in and of itself, they are different. They have different goals. They are better at certain things than other, aspects of the business that are equally as important, right? I don't know. I don't even remember the gentleman's name, but I was watching this YouTube video once upon a time, and he was, using a vehicle, a car, as an example, and saying like which one out of the engine, like which one is, which part is most important, right? I think it was some preacher that he was talking about, but anyways, and he was like, is the motor the most important part, or is it the battery, or is it the little itty bitty cable that gives that starter the power from the battery to get the engine going? And it's like, man, well, you know what? Every single aspect of your business is so important and critical, because if one little aspect isn't working, nothing may work, right? The whole thing may break. Whereas a coach really gives you an opportunity to be like, all right, cool. These are the areas that you need to be focused on. And now we've got a system in place for you to go ahead and execute on.
Yeah, I mean, just to put this in a little bit of context, Rico. So I'm already coaching a lot of contractors one-on-one. I mean, I have some that I meet with once a month. I have some that I meet with twice a month. I have people that I meet with multiple times a week, depending on where they're trying to go. And the principles apply to all of them. The same principles in theory apply to every business, right? But because they're all so different, the way we go about it is like literally every single situation's different, right? Because they have different personalities, they have different goals, they have different wants, they have different needs. And the thing about, any coach, I'm not just saying me, but a good coach will, really get to know these people well enough to know what their goals and dreams are, and then, coax them to do these things and then hold them accountable to doing them. And Larry always says, like, I'm like Dr. Phil, because a lot of days, and as you know this, I mean, you've been in business for yourself forever. Some days I'm just picking them up, dusting them off and saying it's going to be okay.
Right.
And then the next week I might be busting their rear end going, why didn't you do this? It's as much art as science. And if you can make relationships with people, you can really help them grow. You really, really can. They just need to know that there's somebody on their side that knows, that's been where they've been.
I totally agree. And I love that. When is so basically you guys are doing an initial boot camp, right?
Yep. And
then from there, there's going to be some additional like online Zoom types of settings from there.
Yeah. There'll be, coaching, one-on-one Zoom coaching. There'll be weekly, for lack of a better term, mastermind groups. There'll be all kinds of different, there's so much, the inner circle. That's why we partnered with Howard. I mean, other than we're products of this program. I mean, That's what helped us. We wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if it wasn't for the inner circle. But there's so much involved that's way past just the restoration. I mean, there's masterminds included that for admin people, for marketing people, for sales people, for managers. I mean, it's not just Larry and I, Katie, Derek, and Peter. There's this whole army of people in the inner circle, coaches behind us to help these people. So that's what makes it so cool, really, you know.
So when is the boot camp, and what is the cost on the boot camp?
So the event, we're having a webcast on April 5th at 9 a.m. It's going to go over more detail what we're talking about and some good content that people can use in the meantime. And then the event in Houston is May 17th to 19th, Wednesday to Friday. And
but the main
that's pretty much
go ahead, Eric.
The 17th and 8th.
No, the main event, that's
the 18th. The 17th is a day-long boot camp with Howard himself, which is amazing. And then on the 18th, there's a breakout restoration only where Larry, myself, Katie, and Derek. The cost on that's $495. And if they want to stay the third day, they can, which is I highly recommend, because Tommy Mello's the keynote speaker on day 3. And anybody that doesn't know Tommy
Mello is also on the podcast, doing some amazing things there.
A1 Garage,
definitely. Yeah, A1 Garage. Definitely wanted to and listen, for any dominators out there that are looking to go ahead and attend this event. Look, go ahead and do it. Less than $500. It's not expensive. If you got to fly in. Let me give you a little hack on how you can almost make this free virtually. Look, the event is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Go ahead, take the family out. Monday, just go on meetup.com or something like that, or find a local Facebook group, or find a local restoration or a local pro that you can have a breakfast meeting with on Monday, and you get an entire long weekend, tax-free, by the way. So there you go. There's a little hack that you could potentially use. And that way, if you're saying, man, I don't know if I really want to spend the money. Well, look, it's going to go somewhere. You might as well go ahead and dump that money back in to your business. Now, you guys are going to be doing a webcast and whatnot. Do you have a site or a place where someone can go to get some additional information on this?
Yeah, I have actually we can, it was, we have a link for it. It's just it's a web link.
Okay, perfect.
That you can go to.
So I tell you what.
Yeah, I'll give you. You can put it in your show notes.
So I tell you what we'll do is, and Dominators, by the way, if you want to go ahead and get more information about the upcoming boot camp on the 17th through 19th, in the video description below, as well as in the show notes, there's going to be a direct link. Go ahead and click on that, check it out, try it on for size. And again,
I have, I'm sorry, Rico, I apologize. It's supertech.com/freedom.
Supertech U.
I just checked that, so that's working.
Supertechu.com.
.com/freedom.
Okay, perfect. And again, the video in the video description and in the show notes, we'll go ahead and include a link to that. And then outside of that, guys, just give us some closing thoughts for the dominators out there that are looking to grow their business.
So what I'm always saying, what benefited us the most was just getting an outside set of eyes to help your business. We did coaching, and it changed our business. It accelerated our growth, and we found people that we can trust and rely on that would give us quality content and quality direction. It just made the biggest difference in the world, in our business and ourselves.
Eric, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I just think that, look, I come from an athletic background as a youth, and to have a coach, somebody to guide you, somebody to lessen the learning curve. You don't have to stay out there, and you're going to spend the money one way or the other, right? You're either going to make tons of mistakes and spend probably way more than you would ever by joining a coaching group, or you can join a coaching group, flatten the learning curve, and actually get where you want. So many people just, Rico, they sit and they suffer in silence and alone, trying to build their business with no outside input. It just doesn't make sense to me.
I totally 100% agree, man. And we see a lot of that in all businesses, right? We all want to figure it out on our own, That's kind of like by definition, that is the hard way. If there are already people that specialize in certain aspects of business that can go ahead and just cut that learning curve, by in more than half in a lot of cases, it totally makes all the sense in the world. And investing in your business is like the cardinal rule, right? The more valuable that you become, the more knowledge that you have, the better that you can go ahead and start building and scaling your business, the more impact ultimately that you can have, if that's what you want to do, right? Or the better life that you can live, as a business owner, and not be a slave to your business, which ultimately I would argue is probably why everybody got into the business, right? So that they can have a little bit more of that time freedom.
Rico, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I give one quick example of this? So 2.5 years ago, we got a call. Somebody heard our podcast, restoration contractor. He and his wife had been in business for like 21 years, and they were at $500,000, and they had literally been at $500,000 for like 21 years. And he called me and said, "Hey, I heard what you said on the podcast. I'm ready to bail. I can't do this anymore. Like, I am ready to quit." And he said, "So you're kind of like my last hope. But I liked what I heard. Can you coach?" And at the time I wasn't even coaching. I said, "Okay, I'll coach." And 2.5 years later, he's eclipsed $2 million. So he's more than tripled his business. And now he's starting a whole another division that's outside of restoration, but related. And I mean, look, he did the work, not me, but I had been down the road that he had been, and I guided him there. And that's all he needed. Larry and I were the same way. We were willing to do the work, but we had to know what work to do.
Didn't know what to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is in there lies the power of having guidance, of having a mentor, of having a coach. 21 years to get to $500,000, or just stay flat at $500,000 for what, maybe 15 of those 21 years, or maybe even 19 of those 21 years, to then all of a sudden go to, in 2.5 years to get to $2 million. Yeah. And beyond that.
Oh, and I have no doubt that he'll go to 5. Like he's on the path now, man. He's moving.
Right. And just, and think about that, like how much time, which is the most valuable commodity that any of us have, right? Like as a business owner, if you could shave off that much off of your learning curve, instead of being 21 years in business to get to whatever your ideal number is, if you can go ahead and cut that in half, right, or more to get to your dream number, like all of a sudden that changes the game. Now, all of a sudden you go from just, living, from 1 month to the next, trying to figure out how you're going to survive, to potentially building a legacy for you and your family and everything else. So that's like where the real power is. Eric, Larry, thank you so much for your time today. We always appreciate having you guys on the show. And Dominators, make sure that you check out the link. Again, all of the information is going to be in the video description and in the show notes below. And as always, hustle, hack, dominate. I'll catch you guys on the next one.
You've been listening to Restoration Domination, your #1 resource for tips, tricks, and hacks to help your business grow. Subscribe to our channel and follow us for more Restoration Domination. And follow our host at Rico Garcia Jr. on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Till next time, this is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, dominate.